Hey guys, today we'll be working on a 2007 Audi A4. This particular car will be doing rear pads and rear rotors and potentially brake fluid. Whether you're doing this alone or with a partner, it's a good idea to break the lug nuts loose first while there's weight on the ground. Okay, so now that we have the wheel off and we are ready to start taking apart the caliper and taking the rotor off, the first thing you want to do is you want to grab a 1/2 inch and 15 millimeter. Your 1/2 inch is going to take this bolt off back here, and your 15 millimeter is going to steer here, and you're just going to want to take these off, and then also repeat on the bottom. So now that I have the bottom 1/2 inch unscrewed, and I have the top one taken out. Typically when you see, it might be hard to see, but typically when you see blue markings on a thread like this, that means they use thread lock. So we'll need to use thread lock when we reapply the new bolts on. But now what we can do is you can leave this bottom bolt in because it's going to be hard. I ended up not taking off the emergency brake or parking brake off, and I just left it in. But you can slide the bolt out enough just so you can wiggle your caliper off, and there it is. So now that we got the caliper off, now we can replace the shims for the brake pads and get new brake pads in. Okay, so we have the caliper fully removed. Just be careful if you're going to let it dangle like I did. The brake line's pretty strong, but again, just be careful not to touch it a lot and move it a lot. Okay, so we want to take the brake pad off. It simply just comes off. It's just held in by these metal shims. We can see definitely that the brake pads need to be replaced. This car sits a lot, so it's got a lot of hot and cold to it, so maybe that's what happened to it. But yeah, rotors definitely need to be replaced as well. Okay, so we have the brake pads removed. Now we need to get the rotor out. There is a little Torx screw that you have to take out. I can't remember what the bit was. It was a T, I want to say 15 or something. I can't remember. Anyway, so you take that guy out. Just be careful because you don't want to strip it. And then when you're ready to pop the rotor out, you might have to use a dead blow hammer, but this one has been pretty easy with me, so the rotor comes out. Definitely need to be replaced. Be careful when you're taking the rotor out too. You might want to get it at an angle, but yeah, not to scratch it. So we are prepped and ready for the new rotors to go back on. My hands are pretty dirty, as you can see. I'm ready for a new glove. The reason being is because you want to have your hands and gloves really clean when you're touching these rotors, because your grease, any type of grease or anything like that gets on the rotors could possibly get into the brake pads, and you don't want that. So we're going to remove the old shims and put the new brake shims on. Just pop it off, install it back on. So I have the new rotors installed. I also installed the new screw that they supplied with, and I have the new brake pads in. So the next step is we need to get this caliper back on. But the problem is the pads were so low that the piston pushes the pads out as they wear down, but it stays that way. So now we have to push that piston back in. Normally you can buy a brake tool at an auto parts store for like $15 to $20. It's super cheap. This one requires a special squared style tool. Okay, so this is the caliper that's all the way out. I'm going to show you that special tool that I was telling you about. It's that squared piece tool. So what you do is you just find the side of the squared piece that you need, lock it into the piston, and it will be tough at first, but you just turn it to where you can see the piston turning. You might slip off of it every once in a while, but the piston will start spinning, and it will start slowly decreasingly go down. Now that we have the piston compressed in, it'll allow us to put the caliper back on. And just repeat the steps as far as putting it together with those bolts top and bottom. Don't forget the Loctite. Alright, so we are all finished up. We have the rotors, the pads on, everything is torqued down to specs. You might have a little bit of wiggle in your piston caliper. That's totally normal. It's just because we compressed it when we were trying to get it back on. So that's alright. Other than that, make sure you have everything torqued down to factory spec. And once again, thanks again for watching, guys.